Welcome to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, one of the oldest cities in Europe and one of our absolute favorites on the entire Iberian Peninsula. In this video we're taking you on a tour of 50 places in Lisbon that, after a lifetime of visiting this city, we think are worth your time. Not just the obvious ones, though yes, some classics are on the list because they deserve to be, but also some hidden corners, local favorites and spots that don't always make it into the guidebooks. If this is your first time in Lisbon, we hope this gives you a solid map of ideas for your stay. If you are already a Lisbon veteran, well, we'd love to show you something you haven't seen yet, and we are including some hidden gems in the video. And if you know the city better than we do, drop your recommendations in the comments. We do read them. Hola, ¿qué tal? Hello and welcome to a channel made by two humans who live in Spain and spend a probably unreasonable amount of time exploring the Iberian Peninsula so you don't have to do it blind. Our goal is simple. We want you to travel better, stress less, and come home happier. If you want to support what we do, you can become a channel member for the price of a monthly cup of coffee. It helps us making these videos and it means a lot to us. Right? Let's get into it. The list is in alphabetical order. Every place here earned its spot. You will find links to everything we mentioned in the first pinned comment below the video. And throughout the video, we'll show you opening times, prices, and how to get to each place so you can plan as you watch. Here we go, Lisbon, 50 places, starting with number 1. In the western part of the city, you will find something that looks at a first glance like just another shopping mall. And to be fair, it is a shopping mall. But the Amoreiras shopping center is hiding something on its roof that most visitors never find out about. At the top of the building, there's a viewpoint, the Amoreiras 360 panoramic view, that gives you a stunning, unobstructed view over Lisbon in every direction. It's far less crowded than the city's more famous viewpoints, and the perspective it offers, with the city spreading out below you and the Tagus River in the distance, is one of the best in Lisbon. Definitely worth the entrance fee for those looking for the wider views. There is a discount for Lisbon card holders. You can reach the shopping center by bus. There are landmarks in Lisbon that you admire. And then there are landmarks that stop you in your tracks. The Aqueduto das Águas Livres, the aqueduct of the free waters, is firmly in the second category. Stretching for over 58 kilometers through and around the city, it's one of the greatest feats of 18th century engineering in the world. This aqueduct is extraordinary. Commissioned by King João V and completed in 1748, it was built to solve a very real problem. Lisbon was a growing city with a serious shortage of fresh water. The solution was breathtaking in its ambition, a system of arches, tunnels and channels that carried water from springs in Centro all the way into the heart of the capital. The tallest arches crossing the Alcântara Valley rise to nearly 65 meters, and when you stand beneath them, the scale of what you're looking at takes a moment to fully sink in. The best place to understand the aqueduct, its history, its engineering and its role in the life of the city is the Museu da Água, the Water Museum. And yes, you can actually walk on top of the aqueduct. A large section is open to visitors, and walking along the structure is one of those experiences that feels unlike anything else in Lisbon. What makes it even better is the way it works. You walk the length of the open section on one side of the aqueduct, with the city laid out below you in one direction, and then return along the other side and the views are completely different. It's not heavily visited, which makes it feel like a real discovery. Go on a clear day if you can. There is an entrance fee for the visit, and if you have a Lisbon card, make sure you bring it as cardholders get a discount. The best way to reach the entrance is by bus, and as always you will find the specific details on screen and in the links below. Right in the heart of tourist Lisbon is one of the city's most recognizable landmarks, the Arco da Rua Augusta, or Arch of Augusta Street. The arch is a 19th century triumphal gateway built as part of the monumental effort to reconstruct Lisbon after the catastrophic earthquake of 1755, which leveled much of the city. It took over a century to complete. The viewpoint at the summit gives you two completely different perspectives at once. On one side, the rooftops of Baixa, Chiado and Alfama stretch out before you. Turn around and you are looking straight down over the vast Praça do Comércio and out across the Tagus. It's a compact visit but a rewarding one. Access is from the Rua Augusta side of the arch. The ascent starts with a lift, followed by two short flights of stairs to reach the top. There is an entrance fee, though Lisbon card holders get in free. Getting here is easy. The arch is served by the metro, by tram and by multiple bus lines. Not everything on our list has a specific address, and this is the first of those entries, because some of the best things about Lisbon aren't inside a building or behind gates. They are right there on the walls around you. Lisbon has an extraordinary collection of street art and urban art. And this isn't a recent trend. Its roots go back to the 1970s, and what's grown from that since is a constantly evolving, constantly renewing layer of creativity that stretches across the entire city. Murals, graffiti, tiles and ceramics, artistic interventions, unexpected installations tucked into forgotten corners. It's everywhere. Wherever you walk in Lisbon, just slow down a little and pay attention to what's on the walls around you. Some of the most striking pieces are in places you would never expect. We wanted to include street art on this list because we think it reflects something real about Lisbon, its creativity, its irreverence, its refusal to take itself too seriously. It's a city that wears its culture on its sleeve, quite literally. One thing to bear in mind though, by its very nature, street art is ephemeral. Some of what we show you in this video may have already changed or disappeared by the time you visit. In Lisbon, the word ascensor means funicular. There are 3 of them in Lisbon and each one is worth riding. We'll cover all 3 separately on the list, starting with arguably the most famous, the Ascensor da Bica. The Bica funicular connects the Cais do Sodré area down by the river with the Bairro Alto up on the hill, and it's been doing that job since 1892. What makes it particularly special is its lower station tucked inside a building, which gives the whole thing an almost secretive, theatrical feel before you've even boarded. The ride itself takes you up a narrow, steep street lined with houses and local life, and it's as picturesque as Lisbon gets. It's also a classified national monument, which tells you everything you need to know about how important these funiculars are to the identity of the city. 2 tips before you ride. First, do not buy a single ticket at the funicular. Instead, use a Navegante card with credit loaded onto it. It's much better value, and we explain exactly how it works in our transport video, which we'll link below. If you have the Lisbon card, you ride all the funiculars for free and limited times. And we say this because it really matters. Keep a close eye on your belongings on crowded funiculars. They are, unfortunately, a well-known spot for pickpockets. The Ascensor da Glória is the busiest of Lisbon's street funiculars, and it's not hard to see why. Its lower station sits right in the Rocio area, making it an almost irresistible option for anyone heading up to Chiado or the Bairro Alto. Inaugurated in 1885, it's the second oldest of the three, and like the Bica, it holds the status of national monument. The ride takes you up the steep Calçada da Glória in just a couple of minutes, but those minutes are a genuine Lisbon experience, the kind that reminds you this city was built on hills and has never apologized for it. Because of its central location, this is the funicular you're most likely to find yourself on and the one most likely to be busy. The same tips we mentioned for the Bica apply here. Use your Navegante card or Lisboa card rather than a single ticket, and keep your belongings close in the crowd. The Ascensor da Lavra is the oldest of Lisbon's three funiculars, and yet it's by far the least visited of the three. Its location, connecting the Restauradores area with the quiet residential neighborhood of Torel, keeps it well off the main tourist trail, which is precisely what makes it worth seeking out. The ride is shorter and the surroundings more local and unhurried than its two more famous siblings. There are no souvenir shops at the top, no crowds jostling for photos, just a neighborhood going about its day. Like the Bica and the Gloria, the Lavra is a classified national monument. Same advice applies. Navegante card or Lisboa card over a single ticket, and stay alert with your belongings. Now, before we continue, we need to stop and talk to you directly about something. In September 2025, the Ascensor da Gloria was the scene of a tragic accident that made headlines around the world. 16 people lost their lives, among them several tourists. It was a devastating event, and our thoughts remain with the victims and their families. In the wake of that tragedy, all three of Lisbon's funiculars were suspended while investigations and safety reviews take place, and at the time of making this video there is no confirmed date for when or whether they will reopen. We have decided to keep all three on our list because they are genuinely part of the soul of this city, and we hope that by the time you visit they will be running again. But we want to be honest with you about something. During our most recent trip to Lisbon, we had conversations with people who work for the company that operates the funiculars, and the picture they painted was not an optimistic one. Without going into details they were not authorized to share, the impression we came away with is that it could be a very, very long time before these ascensores run again, if they ever do. We hope we are wrong, but we felt you deserve to know that. Please do check the latest situation before your trip. We'll also do our best to keep the information in the links below up to date. We really hope next time you come to Lisbon, you get the chance to ride them. So here's another entry on our list without a single address, because this one is everywhere. Lisbon might just be the tile capital of the world, and once you start noticing its azulejos, you cannot stop. They are on building facades, inside churches, lining metro stations, decorating staircases, wrapping around street corners, above ground and below it. They are in many ways the visual language of this city. The word azulejo tends to make people picture blue and white designs, and yes, you will see plenty of those, but Lisbon styles come in every size, theme and color imaginable. The mastery the Portuguese have developed in this art form over hundreds of years is quite simply unsurpassed. And we'll be coming back to azulejos later in the video because there's a place on our list dedicated entirely to them. Continuing on the theme of things that are deeply, unmistakably Portuguese, we arrive at something that's literally beneath your feet from the moment you start walking this city. The Calçada portuguesa, the traditional Portuguese pavement. Small, irregular stones, hand-cut and hand-laid, covering streets, squares and promenades across Lisbon in patterns that range from simple geometric designs to elaborate, sweeping compositions. It's one of those things that's so omnipresent you might take it for granted at first, but stop for a moment and look down. Behind every stretch of it are the calceteros, the highly skilled craftspeople who carve and lay each stone by hand, keeping alive a tradition that has defined the look and feel of Lisbon for centuries. It's street-level art hiding in plain sight. And once you start appreciating it, you will find yourself stopping to admire it everywhere you go. Look up from almost anywhere in Lisbon, and sooner or later your eyes will find it. The Castelo de São Jorge, St. George's Castle, sitting high above the city on its hilltop like it has always been there. Built in the mid-11th century on a site that has been inhabited since at least the 7th century. This classified national monument is one of Lisbon's defining landmarks and one of its most visited attractions. The castle is big and there's a lot to explore. You can walk the ramparts, climb the towers, and wander through multiple sections of the fortifications at your own pace. And then there are the views. Given its dominant position above the city, it probably won't surprise you to learn that the castle has one of the most spectacular viewpoints in all of Lisbon. Wherever you stand on the walls, the city is spread out before you in a way that's hard to beat. Getting here requires a little planning. The only public transport that takes you close to the entrance is bus 737. If you have a Lisbon card, make sure you bring it. Card holders enter for free. If you spend any time at all in Lisbon or anywhere in Portugal, you will quickly realize that codfish is not just a fish here, it's a cultural institution. The Portuguese are said to have a different cod recipe for every day of the year, and the relationship between this country and bacalhau, salted dried cod, goes back centuries to the days of the great Atlantic fishing expeditions. The Centro interpretativo da história do bacalhau, the interpretative center for the history of cod, is a small museum dedicated entirely to telling that story, and it does it rather well. The visit is built around interactive installations that take you through the history of cod fishing, the trade routes, the preservation techniques, and the reasons why this humble fish became such a cornerstone of Portuguese identity and cuisine. It's engaging, accessible, and fun for adults and children alike, which makes it very easy to combine with other visits nearby. Getting there is straightforward. It's served by the metro, by tram, and by multiple bus lines. There's an entrance fee, and Lisbon card holders get in free. In the Chiado district, rising above the rooftops, stands the Convento do Carmo, the convent of the Carmelite order. Built in the 14th century, it was once so grand it rivaled Lisbon's own cathedral. Then came the earthquake of 1755, and like so much of the city, it was devastated. What happened next, though, is what makes this place truly unlike anything else in Lisbon. Some partial reconstruction was attempted in the years that followed, but by the 19th century, when a romantic fascination with ruins had taken hold across Europe, the decision was made to stop, to leave it. And so the great Gothic naves of the Convento do Carmo remain open to the sky to this day, roofless, weathered, and utterly breathtaking. It's a space with a very particular kind of magic and a deeply moving reminder of the catastrophe that reshaped this city forever. Inside the surviving apse, the Carmo Archaeological Museum has been housed since 1864, displaying archaeological finds spanning many periods of Lisbon's history, alongside original sculptural pieces rescued from convents and churches across the city. There is also an impressive video mapping installation that brings the convent's centuries-long history to life in a way that really adds to the visit. The Convento do Carmo sits near the top exit of the Elevador de Santa Justa, which is itself on our list, making the two very natural companions for a single visit. The nearest metro station is Baixa Chiado, take the Chiado exit. There is an entrance fee, and Lisbon card holders get a small discount. There are cities that have modern tram systems, efficient and comfortable, designed to move people from A to B as quickly as possible. And then there is Lisbon, which has been running some of its trams since the early 20th century and seems in absolutely no hurry to change that. The Elétricos, históricos, Lisbon historic trams are one of the great joys of the city, and riding them is an experience that goes well beyond simply getting from one place to another. These small, creaking, gloriously characterful yellow vehicles navigate streets so narrow you sometimes feel the buildings are close enough to touch from the window. They tilt and sway on the corners, they groan on the hills, and they fill up with a wonderful mix of locals going about their day and many visitors who, like you, cannot quite believe they are being transported around the European capital in a vehicle that looks and feels like it belongs in another era. There are several lines serving different parts of the city, each with its own character and its own highlights along the route. As with the funiculars, the smart move is to ride the trams on your Navigante card or another valid Lisbon transport pass rather than buying individual tickets. It's significantly cheaper and much more convenient. Baixa and Chiado are neighbors in the most vertical sense of the word. One sits at the bottom, the other one perches at the top of a slope steep enough to make you reconsider your life choices halfway up. In 1902, a solution arrived that was as elegant as it was unexpected. A towering wrought iron lift built in neo-Gothic style, rising straight up from the streets of Baixa to deliver you effortlessly to the level of Chiado. Not a funicular, not a tram, a full vertical lift entirely made of iron, standing in the middle of the city like something out of a novel. The Elevador de Santa Justa is no longer a daily commuter tool for most Lisboners, but it has lost none of its magic. It's become one of the capital's most recognizable landmarks. That unmistakable ironwork silhouette is part of the visual identity of central Lisbon. At the top, in Chiado, there is a free access walkway with wonderful views over the city. If you want to go even higher, there is a paid observation deck at the very top of the structure. A word on queues: the line to go up from Baixa can be long, very long, as in a fixture of the Lisbon landscape. But here's a tip we've learned from experience. If you join from the Chiado side and go down, the wait is dramatically shorter. Do not buy a single ticket for the lift, it is frankly expensive for what it is. Use a transport card instead, and if you have a Lisbon card, you ride for free. In the northern part of the city, set within a magnificent landscaped garden, sits one of the great cultural institutions of Portugal, the Fundação Calouste Gulbenkian, named after the Armenian-British oil magnate and philanthropist Calouste Sarkis Gulbenkian, who left his extraordinary personal collection to Portugal upon his death in 1955. It is far more than a museum, it is a place where art, architecture and nature exist in genuine conversation with each other. The main Gulbenkian Museum houses a collection spanning an almost bewildering range of periods and civilizations: ancient Egyptian artifacts, Islamic art, Chinese porcelain, Japanese prints, and paintings by Rembrandt, Monet, Renoir, and Turner, among others. At the other end of the garden, the Centro de Arte Moderna houses the most complete collection of modern Portuguese art in existence, and in 2024 it completed a striking new extension designed by Japanese architect Kengo Kuma, an exciting addition to the Lisbon cultural landscape. Before you go in, take a moment to appreciate the structure itself. Kuma's building is a beautiful piece of contemporary architecture, and the way it sits in dialogue with the garden in front of it, it is something special. The gardens themselves are worth a visit in their own right. Woodland paths, a tranquil lake, and open lawns right in the heart of the city. Entry to the gardens is free. To visit the collections, there is an entrance fee, and Lisbon card holders receive a discount. In the lower stretches of the Alfama quarter stands one of the most distinctive buildings in Lisbon, the Casa dos Picos, the House of Spikes. Its extraordinary facade, built in 1523, is covered in pyramid-shaped stone points. It survived the earthquake of 1755 and since 2012 has been the home of the Fundação José Saramago, the foundation dedicated to the life and legacy of Portugal's greatest modern writer and 1998 Nobel Prize laureate in literature. José Saramago established the foundation himself in 2007 with the goals of promoting culture, defending human rights, and protecting the environment. Inside the Casa dos Picos, the permanent exhibition traces his life and work throughout personal objects, manuscripts, books, and audiovisual material, including his Nobel Prize. The ground floor also houses an archaeological nucleus belonging to the Museum of Lisbon, where Roman-era finds and remnants of the old Moorish city walls have been uncovered beneath the building itself. As a curiosity, Saramago is buried right in front of the building, beneath a centuries-old olive tree transplanted from the village where he was born. It is a quietly moving thing to stand beside. Access to the archaeological section is free. There is an entrance fee for the exhibition on Saramago with a discount for Lisboa card holders. Lisbon has no shortage of churches, and we have been selective about which ones to include in this list. The Igreja de Santo Antonio is here not because it is the grandest or the most architecturally overwhelming, but because of the place it holds in the heart of this city and its people. Santo Antonio, Saint Anthony of Padua, was born in Lisbon in 1195 on the very spot where this church now stands. And for the citizens of Lisbon, he is far more than a religious figure. He is family. The 13th of June, his feast day, is the biggest celebration of the year in the city, the Festa de Santo Antonio, and the devotion that surrounds him is something you feel the moment you step inside. He is also, as many Portuguese will happily tell you, the patron saint of matchmaking and lost things. Whether you are looking for love, for your keys, or simply for a moment of quiet in a busy city, Santo Antonio apparently covers all bases. The church itself is a beautiful, intimate space. The interior is a single-naved, elegant and warmly lit, with altars and azulejo panels lining the walls. There is a particular chapel dedicated to the saint that draws a quiet but steady stream of visitors and devotees throughout the day. Built, it is said, on the precise spot where Anthony himself was born. Access to the church is free. The church sits right next to the Sé de Lisboa, Lisbon's cathedral, making the two a very natural pairing for a single visit. Sitting at the top of one of Lisbon's famous 7 hills, the Jardim do Torel is one of those places that feels like a genuine secret, even though it's right in the middle of the city. Its origins go back to an 18th century private state, and since the late 1920s, it has been a public garden and viewpoint, surrounded by elegant 19th century townhouses and noble palaces that give the whole area a quietly aristocratic atmosphere. From the garden's terraces, you get sweeping views over the Avenida da Liberdade, the Baixa, and across to the western hills of the city, all from a spot that sees a fraction of the visitors of Lisbon's more famous miradores. Entry is free. If you want to understand Lisbon before you explore it or make sense of everything you've already seen, the Lisboa Story Center is an excellent place to spend an hour. It's a small but well-designed interactive museum that takes you on a journey through the city's history from its earliest settlements right through to the present day, using dramatic reconstructions, audiovisual installations, and a multilingual audio guide that leads you through the experience at your own pace. The visit is organized into 6 areas covering the major chapters of Lisbon's history. Roman foundations, the age of discovery, the city at the height of its global power, and inevitably the catastrophic earthquake of 1755, which is brought to life here in a simulation that gives you a real sense of just how devastating that event was. It's engaging for adults and children alike, historically accurate without ever feeling like a lecture, and one of the better introductions to the city you will find anywhere. The center is located right on the Praça do Comércio, steps from the Terreiro do Passo metro station on the Blue Line. There is an entrance fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. We have mentioned the Lisboa card, the Lisbon card, several times already, and we will keep doing so right up to the end of the video, so it feels like a good moment to stop and say a little more about it. The Lisboa card is an attraction and transport pass for the city. Now, we always look closely at these passes because they are not always the great deal they appear to be on paper. But the Lisboa card is one of the exceptions. After years of using it ourselves, we think it offers exceptional value, and we would recommend it without hesitation to anyone spending a few days in the city. We have 2 videos on the channel that go into more detail, one built around a full 3-day Lisbon itinerary using the card, and a more recent one with updated information on prices and what's included. We'll also put a link to the site where you can purchase the Lisboa card directly. We want to be transparent. That purchase link is a sponsored link. You pay exactly the same price as anywhere else, but when someone buys a card through our link, we receive a small commission. It helps keep the channel going, and we are grateful for every single click. Under the watchful eye of the 25th of April bridge, you will find one of Lisbon's most surprising and energetic spaces. LX Factory was born in 2008 out of the ruins of a vast 19th century textile complex that had stood on this side and that for decades it lay largely abandoned. Then a visionary team saw what it could become, and today is one of the capital's most fashionable and creative addresses, spread across 23,000 square meters of industrial buildings, courtyards and covered streets. LX Factory is home to more than 50 creative shops, design studios, restaurants, bars, workshops and cultural spaces. One place you absolutely should not miss while you are there is the Ler Devagar bookstop, housed in a soaring former printing hall, where you may even lucky enough to catch one of the enchanting mini theater performances by the talented artist William. One of those moments that stays with you. Entry to LX Factory is free. To get there, take tram line 15 or one of several bus lines. On the banks of the Tagus in the Belém district, where the river is at its widest and the cityscape opens up magnificently, stands one of the most exciting cultural institutions to have arrived in Lisbon in recent times. The MAAT, Museum of Art, Architecture and Technology, opened in October 2016 and was built around a simple but ambitious idea to create a space where contemporary art, architectural innovation and the history of technology could coexist and speak to each other. What makes MAAT truly special is its structure across 2 very different buildings connected by a riverside garden. The first is the Central Tejo, a magnificent former power station built in 1908, which once provided electricity to the entire Lisbon region and is one of Portugal's finest examples of early industrial architecture. The visit inside the former power station is fantastic, and you will be overwhelmed by the size of the restored elements that were part of the electricity generating effort and that have been beautifully preserved. This part of MAAT tells the story of the technology, but also of the human beings behind it. The workers, the engineers, the lives that kept the lights on across an entire city, while most of the space is dedicated to telling the story of the building itself. A section is also given over to contemporary art exhibitions, which sit in rather wonderful contrast to their surroundings. The second building is the Maat Gallery, a striking contemporary structure whose sweeping ceramic tile form hugs the riverfront so low to the ground that Belém's historic skyline remains unobstructed from the water. Inside, its cavernous central hall is one of the most dramatic exhibition spaces in Portugal. Together, the two buildings host a program of temporary international exhibitions alongside a permanent exhibition on the history of electricity. Make sure you find the Museum Café, which has a terrace with wonderful views over the Tagus. The drinks are on the pricey side, we won't pretend otherwise, but the views from that terrace are so extraordinary that we feel they more than justify the bill. And before you leave, if you didn't do it when you first arrived, make sure you also climb to the large terrace above the Maat Gallery itself, which gives you even more sweeping views over the Tagus estuary. It costs nothing extra and the panorama is simply stunning. To get to Maat, take tram line 15. It's a short walk from there. There is an entrance fee and Lisbon card holders receive a discount. If you are familiar with our work, you know that visiting markets is a top priority wherever we go. They are, in our experience, one of the best windows into the real life of a city, its food, its rhythms, its people. So here are a couple of Lisbon markets for your consideration, starting with the Mercado de Arroios. Sitting in the multicultural neighborhood of the same name in the northern part of the city center, the Mercado de Arroios reflects its surrounding beautifully. This is not a huge market by any means, but its beautiful architecture contains fresh produce, local traders, and restaurants that bring together flavors from Portugal and far beyond. It's a kind of market where locals actually shop, not a tourist trap inside. On the other side of the city, in the elegant and quietly fashionable residential neighborhood of Campo de Urique, the Mercado de Campo de Urique offers a slightly different atmosphere, a little more refined, a little more neighborhood bistro, but no less authentic for it. The covered market has been beautifully restored and houses a mix of fresh produce stalls and a popular food court that draws locals and tourists alike. As we have already seen several times on this list, Lisbon's public transport is far more than just a way of getting around. It is part of the cultural experience of the city itself. And nowhere is that more true than in the metro. Lisbon's underground network is quite simply a gigantic work of art. Each station has its own distinct visual identity, conceived and executed by some of Portugal's finest artists and designers. No two stations are alike. The range of styles, palettes, and artistic approaches across the network is extraordinary. And yes, as you might expect in this city, tiles feature prominently. But there are also bold graphic murals, sculptural interventions, and architectural gestures that would not look out of place in a contemporary art gallery. The Lisbon Metro holds its own alongside the most celebrated networks in the world: Moscow, Stockholm, Naples, Tashkent, as a testament what public space can be when a city truly invests in it. It would be impossible to do justice to every station here, so we'll simply say this: as you travel around Lisbon, don't just stare at your phone while you wait for the train. Look up, look around. Some of the best art in the city is right there on the platform. Make a point of getting off at a few stations you weren't planning to visit. It is always worth it. The city was built across 7 hills, and one of the great pleasures of exploring it is climbing to the top of each one and taking in the views. The Portuguese word for viewpoint is Miradouro, and Lisbon has more of them than almost any capital city in Europe. We have included the most important ones on our list, each with its own distinct character, atmosphere, and perspective over the city. Up in the Graça district sits one of the city's most atmospheric viewpoints. Everyone calls it the Miradouro da Graça, but its official name is Miradouro Sofia de Melo Breiner Andersen, in honor of one of Portugal's most celebrated 20th century poets. The views from the terrace are spectacular, and the atmosphere here is more relaxed and local than at some of Lisbon's more tourist-heavy miradores. Right beside the viewpoint stands the Igreja da Graça, one of the oldest churches in the city. If it's open when you visit, go inside, it's well worth a few minutes of your time. And getting up here has recently become much easier. The modern Elevador da Graça, a new funicular inaugurated in 2024, connects the Moraria with the Calçada da Graça, dropping you practically at the viewpoint's doorstep. Entry to the viewpoint is free. We are halfway through the list and we are taking a quick coffee break, a bica, naturally, because that's what you drink here in Lisbon. This one is courtesy of the kind supporters of the channel, and we are truly grateful for every single one of you. If you enjoy what we do and want to say thank you, you can invite us to a virtual cup of coffee or become a channel member. The details below the video. In the heart of the Alfama district, the Miradouro das Portas do Sol, the viewpoint of the Gates of the Sun, sits on what was once one of the main entrances to the Moorish city. Today it's a wide, sun-drenched terrace, and it offers a beautiful panorama over the terracotta rooftops of Alfama tumbling down towards the Tagus. It's one of the most central and easily accessible viewpoints in the city, which means it can get busy, but the views are really lovely, and the surrounding streets of Alfama make it a natural stop on any exploration of the neighborhood. Entry is free. The Miradouro da Senhora do Monte sits at the very top of the Graça Hill, and the panorama it offers, Castle, River, Alfama, Baixa and beyond, is arguably the most complete in the entire city. Next to the terrace stands a small, intimate chapel of the same name, a quietly moving little space that has been a place of pilgrimage for centuries. What we particularly love about this Miradouro is that it sees considerably fewer visitors than the most famous miradores. If you are willing to make the climb or combine it with a visit to the nearby Miradouro da Graça, this one will reward you handsomely. Entry is free. On the edge of the Bairro Alto, the Miradouro de Santa Catarina looks out over the Tagus, the 25th of April bridge, and the hills of the opposite bank in one sweeping dramatic view. It is a big open terrace with a very different energy to the more intimate miradores of Alfama and Graça. This is one of Lisbon's most bohemian viewpoints, with a distinctly young, laid-back vibe that sets it apart. At sunset, musicians, students and locals gather here with a beer or a glass of wine, and the atmosphere becomes something between a neighborhood hangout and a spontaneous open-air concert. It is lively, unpretentious and full of life. Entry is free. Just a few steps from the Miradouro das Portas do Sol, the Miradouro de Santa Lucia is one of the most popular and most photographed viewpoints in all of Lisbon, and it's not hard to see why. The terrace is framed by bougainvilleas covered pergolas and decorated with beautiful Azulejos panels depicting scenes from Lisbon's history, making it as lovely to look at up close as it is for the views it offers over Alfama and the Tagus. Its charm lies in that combination of elements, the tiles, the flowers, the river views. It can get busy, particularly in the middle of the day, so early morning or late afternoon are the best times to visit. Entry is free. Down in the riverside district of Alcántara, not far from the LX factory, the Miradouro de Santo Amaro is one of Lisbon's lesser-known viewpoints, which is surprising given how easy it is to reach. The terrace sits directly beneath the great arches of the bridge, offering a perspective on that iconic structure that you simply cannot get from anywhere else in the city. The bridge looms overhead in a way that is dramatic, while the Tagus stretches out before you in all its width. What makes Santo Amaro particularly appealing is its tranquility. Despite easy access by tram and bus, it draws a fraction of the crowds of the more central Miradouros, and the atmosphere here is calm and unhurried. Next to the terrace stands the charming little Chapel of Santo Amaro, one of the oldest chapels in Lisbon, whose modest exterior conceals a beautifully decorated interior well worth a peek if it's open when you visit. Entry to the viewpoint is free. In the Bairro Alto, at the top of the Calçada da Glória, which you may recognize as the route of the Ascensor da Glória, the Miradouro de São Pedro de Alcântara is widely regarded as one of the most beautiful viewpoints in Lisbon, and it's easy to understand why. The upper terrace is a formal garden, elegant and well kept, with benches, fountains, busts of notable Portuguese figures, and a tiled map that identifies every landmark visible on the horizon before you. It's the kind of viewpoint that invites you to linger. The panorama takes in the Baixa, the Castelo de São Jorge, sitting proudly on its hill, the Moraria, Alfama, and the Tagus, one of the classic Lisbon views and one that never gets old. There are in fact 2 levels to the Miradouro, connected by a staircase, each with its own character and perspective. Come in the late afternoon when the light is golden and the castle glows. Entry is free. Hidden at the end of an inconspicuous alleyway in the Moraria neighborhood, the Miradouro do Monte Agudo is one of those viewpoints that rewards the curious traveler willing to venture a little off the beaten path. It offers a lovely perspective over one of Lisbon's oldest and most characterful quarters, with the rooftops of the city and the Tagus in the distance. Less visited than many of the Miradores on our list, Monte Agudo has a local feel, the kind of spot where you are far more likely to find Lisboners than tour groups. There is also a charming little cafe on site, which makes it an ideal place to sit, slow down, and take it all in. Entry is free, and you can reach the viewpoint by bus. Hidden away in the Alfama, the Miradouro do Recolhimento is a small, unassuming terrace that most visitors walk straight past, and honestly, that's part of its charm. It sits quietly on the slope below the castle, offering a glimpse over the tightly packed rooftops of one of Lisbon's oldest neighborhoods, with a river in the distance. It won't keep you long, but that's not the point. Sometimes the best Miradouros are the ones you stumble upon between the big ticket stops. A moment to catch your breath and take in the view. Access is free, and the tram will leave you near the viewpoint. If there is one stop on this entire list that you simply cannot skip, this is it. Jerónimos Monastery in the Belém district, declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was built between the 16th and 17th centuries and is the finest example of manual-line architecture you will find anywhere, a style also known as Portuguese Late Gothic, defined by its gloriously exuberant, almost overwhelming ornamentation, a visual testament to the age of discovery that funded and inspired the whole endeavor. The exterior facades alone will leave you breathless, but it is the cloister that truly takes your breath away. Intricate, soaring, and somehow both delicate and monumental at the same time. 2 stories of carved stone arches frame a perfectly proportioned courtyard, and no matter how many photographs you have seen of it beforehand, nothing quite prepares you for the real thing. The church is equally worth your time and carries real historical weight. Buried within its walls are 2 of Portugal's most iconic figures. The poet Luís de Camões, whose epic poetry immortalized the age of Portuguese exploration, and the navigator Vasco da Gama, who actually lived that story. Members of the Portuguese royal family rest here too. Hot tip, the Jerónimos Monastery is one of the most visited monuments in the entire city, and the queues can be significant by mid-morning. If your schedule allows it, get here as early as possible, ideally right when it opens. To get here, take tram 15, which drops you right at the monastery gate. Entry to the church is free, but there is an admission fee for the monastery itself. If you have the Lisboa card, however, you get in at no extra cost, which is yet another reason to get one before you start exploring. We have mentioned the trams, the Elétricos, more than once on this list, and if, like us, you have found yourself slightly obsessed with them by this point, then the Museu da Carris is a very natural next stop. Carris is the company that has operated Lisbon's public transport since 1872, and this museum tells the full story of the iconic yellow trams, the funiculars and the elevadores that have been threading through these hills for well over a century. There are two parts to the visit. First comes the museum itself, with well-presented displays tracing the history of the company and its vehicles. Then, once you have finished that part, you board a historic tram that takes you over to the part of the premises where the old trams and double-decker buses are kept. The tram ride alone is fantastic, and the warehouse at the end brings the city's transport heritage to life in a way that is far more engaging than you might expect. It is the kind of place that turns what sounds like a niche subject into something genuinely fascinating. It is a great stop, especially if you are traveling with curious kids or anyone with a soft spot for the kind of transport that puts modern city buses firmly to shame. There is an admission fee, Lisbon card holders get a discount, and tram 15 will take you to the museum. If Lisbon has a soul, Fado is a big part of it. And the Museu do Fado in the heart of Alfama is the best place to understand why. This music is not just a genre, it is a way of feeling, a word the Portuguese themselves struggle to translate, and the museum does a beautiful job of tracing its history from the narrow streets of 19th century Lisbon all the way through to the present day. The collection covers the instruments, the voices, the stories, and the culture behind Fado. There is also a real sense of place here. You are not just learning about Fado, you are standing in the neighborhood where so much of its history was shaped. And if you are keen on watching Fado live later on, this visit will give you a wonderful introduction that will help you appreciate the art form all the more. There is an admission fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. Opened in 2022, the Royal Treasure Museum is one of Lisbon's newest attractions, and from the moment you arrive, it is clear this is something special. It shares space with the Palácio da Ajuda, the grand neoclassical royal palace in the west of the city, which is already a destination in its own right. But the museum itself makes an immediate statement. Inside a bright white building, the architects have constructed a structure that simulates an enormous safe, a vault housing the jewels and wonders accumulated by the Portuguese crown over centuries. The collection is spread across 11 different sections, combining traditional display cases and explanatory panels with interactive elements that bring the history of each piece to life. Crowns, ceremonial objects, extraordinary jewelry, the sheer scale of what the Portuguese monarchy gathered over the centuries is staggering. This is one of those museums that could easily steal 2 hours without you noticing. You can reach the museum by tram, there is an admission fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. We talk about Azulejos right at the start of this video, those iconic painted tiles that seem to cover every surface in Lisbon. If that conversation sparked your curiosity and you want to understand the full story behind this art form that is so deeply woven into Portuguese identity, the National Tile Museum is unmissable. Housed in a stunning former convent, it is a sensational place for anyone who loves beautiful things. The collection traces the history of the Azulejos from its origins all the way through to contemporary works, and the building itself is part of the experience. The convent church, with its own extraordinary tile work, is worth a visit alone. To get there, the metro does not reach the museum directly, so you will need to take a bus. There is a stop right at the entrance. There is an admission fee, but Lisboa card holders get in for free. On paper, a museum dedicated to carriages might not set your pulse racing. We understand that, but hear us out. Because the Museu Nacional dos Coches is one of those places that completely defies expectations and leaves you open-mouthed. The collection is one of the finest of its kind in the world, and once you are standing in front of these pieces, the idea that this could ever be dull simply evaporates. The museum's origins go back to 1905, when Queen Amelia of Portugal decided to preserve the royal carriages that were falling out of use as the age of the automobile arrived. What started as an act of personal initiative by the Queen became, over time, a national treasure. The collection grew to include ceremonial coaches, berlins and chases spanning 3 centuries of extraordinary craftsmanship. Vehicles dripping in glided carvings, painted panels and velvet interiors that were never really about getting from A to B, but about projecting power, wealth and prestige on a breathtaking scale. Today, the museum occupies 2 locations in Belém. The original Picadeiro Real, the old royal riding hall, and a striking modern building opened in 2015 just across the road, which houses the bulk of the collection. Between the two, you get both the atmosphere of the historic space and the scale needed to display these magnificent objects as they deserve. Give yourself plenty of time for this one. It rewards every minute you spend in it. There is an admission fee and Lisboa card holders enter for free. Standing on the northern bank of the Tagus in Belém, the Padrão dos Descobrimentos, the monument to the discoveries, takes the form of a stylized caravel cutting forward into the river, its prow pointing out towards the sea. And at the very tip of that prow stands Prince Henry the Navigator, the man who set the whole extraordinary adventure in motion. Behind him, arranged along the flanks of the monument in 2 great rising lines, are the protagonists of the Portuguese age of discovery. Navigators, evangelists, soldiers, artists, rendered as gigantic sculptures, each one a chapter in one of history's most remarkable stories. The monument is not just something to admire from outside. A lift takes you up throughout the interior, followed by a short flight of stairs, to a viewing platform at the top, and the views from up there are wonderful, with the Tagus stretching out before you and Belém laid out on either side. Before you leave, make sure you look down at the ground in front of the monument, where a huge compass rose is set into the pavement, spectacular in scale and detail, and a perfect reminder of just how far these ships once sailed. There is an admission fee and Lisboa card holders enter for free. There is something quietly melancholic about the Palácio Nacional da Ajuda. This vast neoclassical palace, built in the 19th century on the hills of the Ajuda neighborhood, was designed to be the permanent residence of the Portuguese royal family, and for a time it was exactly that. But the monarchy was abolished with the proclamation of the Portuguese Republic in 1910, and the palace was left frozen in time, mid-story, like a chapter that never quite got its ending. Today it functions as an extensive museum, and what makes it so compelling is precisely that lived-in quality. This was not a palace built to impress visiting dignitaries from a safe distance, it was a home. And as you move through its grand rooms, you get a genuine sense of the daily life, the tastes, and the world of the people who occupied it. The staterooms are opulent in the way only 19th century royal interiors can be, with furniture, paintings, silverware, and decorative arts accumulated over decades of a reign that spanned some of the most turbulent years in Portuguese history. And as we mentioned when we visited the Royal Treasure Museum, that collection shares this same extraordinary building, making Ajuda one of the most rewarding single stops on this entire list. You can reach the palace by tram, there is an admission fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. Portugal takes its memory seriously, and nowhere is that more evident than the National Pantheon, one of the most imposing monuments in Lisbon. Housed in the magnificent domed church of Santa Engracia in the Alfama, the building itself is a story worth telling. Construction began in the 17th century and was only completed in 1966. The same year it was inaugurated as the National Pantheon, dedicated to perpetuating the memory of Portugal's most illustrious citizens. And what a roll call it is! Buried here are fado singer Amalia Rodrigues, whose voice defined a generation, poet Sofia de Mello Breiner Andersen, and footballer Eusebio, one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. Several of the country's most significant political figures rest here too. For those who cannot be buried in the Pantheon itself, including navigator Pedro Álvares Cabral, Vasco da Gama and poet Luis de Camões, whom we encountered at the Jerónimos Church, cenotaphs stand in their honor, ensuring their place in the national memory is not forgotten. Do not leave without climbing up to the terrace that wraps around the gigantic dome. The views over Lisbon from up there are spectacular. The Alfama rooftops, the Tagus, the bridges, the kind of panorama that makes you want to stay far longer than you planned. There is an admission fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. Lisbon is a city of centuries, but this entry on our list belongs firmly to the present. Parque das Nações, the Park of the Nations, is the modern district that grew out of the site of Expo 98, the universal exhibition held on the banks of the Tagus. Before that, it was a former industrial area, contaminated land, warehouses, and little else. What replaced it is a vibrant, airy district of wide promenades, contemporary architecture, green spaces, and river views that feels like a completely different city from the Alfama, Belém, or Chiado we have been exploring for most of this list. If you are traveling with children or simply want a day that feels a little different, Parque das Nações has a lot to offer. The headline attraction is the Oceanário de Lisboa, one of the largest aquariums in the world, built around a massive central tank that you can view from both above and below the waterline. Sharks, sea otters, giant tuna, penguins, all sharing the same extraordinary space. Nearby, the Pavilhão do Conhecimento is an interactive science museum with hands-on exhibits that work just as well for curious adults as they do for kids. The Torre Vasco da Gama, standing next to the immense Vasco da Gama Bridge, one of the longest bridges in Europe, is the tallest building in Lisbon. To get a sense of the whole district from above, take the cable car that runs along the riverfront from one end of the area to the other. The views of Parque das Nações, the Tagus, and the bridge from up there are spectacular. But you do not need to spend a single euro to enjoy what makes this place special at ground level. The waterfront promenade stretches for kilometers, lined with gardens, fountains, and with water features, and dotted with an impressive collection of outdoor sculpture and contemporary artwork. Just walking along the Tagus here, with the river wide and silver in front of you, is one of the great simple pleasures Lisbon has to offer. The beating heart of the whole district and your entry point is the Estação do Oriente, designed by the Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava and completed in time for Expo 98. It is one of the most remarkable transport buildings in Europe a vast, soaring structure of steel and glass that manages to feel simultaneously like a cathedral, a forest of palm trees, and a futuristic space station. It serves as a train, metro, and bus hub and is a destination in itself. The easiest way to reach Parque das Nações from the city center is the red metro line, alighting at Oriente. Admission fees apply for the main attractions. Sometimes a city gives you exactly what you need at exactly the right moment, and in Lisbon, that moment often happens in Parque Eduardo VII. Named in honor of the British King Edward VII, who visited Lisbon in 1903 to strengthen the ancient alliance between England and Portugal, the park was inaugurated shortly afterwards and remains the largest green space in the center of the city, covering some 26 hectares on a gentle slope that rises away from the Avenida da Liberdade. The layout is elegant and unhurried. A central strip of manicured lawn and hedging runs the full length of the park, flanked on either side by tree-lined walkways where you can stroll at whatever pace suits you. At the highest point, furthest from the city center, a large monumental belvedere looks out over the whole park, the Praça do Marquês de Pombal, the Avenida da Liberdade stretching away below and beyond it. It is a magnificent viewpoint and one that many visitors overlook entirely. But the real reason the Parque Eduardo VII earned its place on this list is tucked into one of its corners and goes by the name of Estufa Fria. Estufa means greenhouse in Portuguese, and the name barely prepares you for what you find inside. Built on the site of a former quarry, the project transformed the abandoned quarry into something extraordinary. Despite being called the Estufa Fria, there are in fact three distinct spaces here. The Estufa Fria, or cold greenhouse, is the largest and takes its name from the fact that it uses no artificial heating system. Instead, a roof of wooden slats can be regulated to control both temperature and light naturally throughout the year, filtering the sunlight into something soft and almost otherworldly. The Estufa Quente, or warm greenhouse, has a glass roof and houses tropical and equatorial plants that need higher temperatures. And the smaller of the three, the Estufa Doce, is dedicated to cacti, succulents, and aloe, with an atmosphere all of its own. Between the three spaces you will find narrow pathways winding through hundreds of plant species from around the world, small lakes, waterfalls, and the kind of tranquility that feels rare in the middle of a busy capital city. The sound of water, the birdsong, the filtered light through the wooden slats, it is one of the most peaceful and charming corners we have found in Lisbon, and that is saying something on a list this long. Entry to the park itself is free. The Estufa Fria has an admission fee, but Lisboa card holders get in at no extra cost. There are cities defined by their bridges, and Lisbon is one of them. The Ponte 25 de Abril, 25th of April, is simply everywhere. You see it from the viewpoints, from the river, from the hills, from the window of the tram, a constant, almost magnetic presence on the horizon that draws the eye every single time. Named after the date of Portugal's Carnation Revolution in 1974, which ended nearly 5 decades of dictatorship, the bridge carries a weight of history that goes well beyond its very considerable physical dimensions. And those dimensions are truly impressive. Spanning the Tagus estuary at its narrowest point and connecting Lisbon with the town of Almada on the south bank, the bridge stretches for almost 3 kilometers, making it one of the largest suspension bridges in the world. It was opened in 1966 when it was actually named after the dictator Salazar, a name that was swiftly changed after the revolution, and has 2 decks. The upper one carrying the relentless flow of road traffic, and the lower one, added in 1999, used by trains. Standing anywhere along the waterfront in Belém or Alcântara and watching that incessant stream of vehicles crossing above the water, the red towers rising into the sky, is one of those Lisbon experiences that never quite loses its hold on you. And if you want to go beyond admiring it from the outside, there is an experience attached to the bridge that deserves a mention. Pilar 7 is exactly what it sounds like. One of the gigantic pillars that holds the suspension bridge above the Tagus, and since 2017 open to visitors as one of Lisbon's most original and memorable attractions. The experience begins at ground level, where you follow the story of the bridge's construction that quickly makes you realize just how staggering an engineering achievement the bridge was. The highlight, though, is the lift ride to the top of the pillar, which takes you up to a panoramic platform at 80 meters above the city. From up there you can see and hear, with the traffic rumbling just meters above your head, the bridge in a way that it's like nothing else in Lisbon. And for those brave enough, a glass platform juts out over the void, offering a stomach-dropping view straight down to the ground below. The views of Belém, the Tagus, and the city stretching away into the distance from up there are spectacular. There is an admission fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. Few city squares in Europe carry as much history as the Praça do Comércio. Before the catastrophic earthquake of 1755, which destroyed most of Lisbon and sent a tsunami crashing up the Tagus, this waterfront site was home to the Ribeira Palace, the principal royal residence of the Portuguese court since the 16th century. The Marquês de Pombal, who masterminded the rebuilding of the entire city, transformed the ruins into a grand new square shaped like an open U, with three sides formed by elegant arcaded buildings and the fourth left completely open to the river. The result was a deliberate statement. Lisbon was no longer a royal city but a commercial one, and the square's new name, the Square of Commerce, made that perfectly clear. At its center stands the magnificent bronze equestrian statue of King José I. What makes the Praça do Comércio unique, and what no photograph quite manages to capture, is the feeling of standing in a space that opens directly onto the Tagus. There is no embankment wall closing off the view. The square simply runs down to the water, and the river fills the entire southern horizon. For centuries, this was the grand entrance to Lisbon for anyone arriving by sea. Kings, heads of state, merchants, and travelers from across the world would have had this square as their first sight of the city. On the north side, the magnificent triumphal Arco da Rua Augusta we saw earlier frames the passage into the heart of the city beyond. If the Praça do Comércio is Lisbon's grand formal entrance, the Rocio is its beating heart. Officially named Praça de Dom Pedro IV, after the king whose statue crowns the tall column at its center, it has been the main gathering place of the city since the Middle Ages. It has been the stage for royal proclamations and popular celebrations, for bullfights, and more darkly, for the public executions of the Inquisition. The neoclassical Teatro Nacional Dona Maria II, the National Theatre, presides now over the square. At ground level, it is an immediate sensory delight. First, the floors paved in the famous wave pattern Portuguese cobblestone, black basalt and white limestone rippling underfoot in a pattern first laid in 1848. Then two magnificent bronze fountains catching the light, and the constant hum of cafes and street life that has made this the preferred meeting point of Lisboners for generations. On the northern western edge of the square stands the Estação do Rocio, one of the most beautiful railway stations you will ever see. Its facade is a theatrical masterpiece of neo-Manueline style, two enormous horseshoe-shaped arches at the entrance, their stonework carved with rope motifs and maritime detail, rising to a clock turret that has watched over the square for well over a century. It is the kind of building you will want to contemplate even if you have no train to catch. And if you do, it connects Lisbon directly to Sintra. Not far from the Amoreiras shopping center, which we visited earlier in the list, lies a place that connects directly to another entry we've already covered, the Aqueduto. The Depósito da Mãe d'Água das Amoreiras is the great reservoir that sat at the end of that extraordinary aqueduct, the final destination of all that water carried across kilometers of arches and tunnels into the heart of Lisbon. Before you even go inside, it's worth pausing to take in the Arco Triunfal das Amoreiras, the triumphal arch that marks the entrance to the old Amoreiras neighborhood. It stands next to a charming Lisbon square where you would be entirely forgiven for wanting to stop for a coffee. The reservoir is part of the Museu da Água, the same institution behind the water museum we mentioned in the aqueduct entry. And together they tell a remarkably complete story about how Lisbon solved its water supply problem in the 18th century. The interior itself is a vast vaulted chamber with a dramatic quality to it. Over the years, it has also become a venue for cultural events and exhibitions, which have only added to its reputation as one of Lisbon's hidden gems. You can walk around the entire deposit and then climb up to the terrace on top, which offers excellent views over the city. One practical note before you go, there is no ticket office on site, so you will need to buy your tickets online in advance or on the day of your visit if you like it. Lisbon card holders receive a discount. You can travel to Rato metro station, south of the map on the screen, to visit the deposit. The Sé de Lisboa, Sé being the Portuguese word for cathedral, is the oldest church in the city, and its history reaches right back to the foundation of Portugal as a nation. Construction began in 1147 when the first king of Portugal reconquered Lisbon from the Moors, and in a detail that perfectly captures the layered history of this city, the cathedral was built over a mosque, which had itself been erected on the site of an earlier Visigoth Christian temple. From the outside, with its two squat fortified towers flanking a Romanesque facade and a large central rose window, it looks less like a place of worship and more like a medieval fortress, which, given the turbulent centuries it has lived through, is hardly surprising. Today it offers a remarkable layering of styles. The visit rewards every corner you explore. The main nave is austere and powerful, its stone arches drawing the eye toward the Gothic apse. From the upper choir, a magnificent view opens over the interior of the cathedral and across to the great rose window. And there is also a small terrace in the facade area that offers lovely views over the surrounding rooftops. The Treasury Museum holds 4 rooms of ecclesiastical vestments, jewelry and relics. There is an admission fee and Lisboa card holders have a discount. And so we reach the end of our list and we could not have chosen a more fitting final entry. The Torre de Belém is one of the most recognizable images in all of Portugal, a monument so deeply woven into the identity of Lisbon that it has become almost a symbol of the country itself. Built between 1514 and 1519 on a small island in the Tagus at the mouth of the river where the great ships of the Age of Discovery set sail for the unknown, it was part of Lisbon's maritime defense system. Together with the monastery of Jeronimus, which we visited earlier in this list, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Up close, the tower is a work of extraordinary beauty. Every surface seems to carry a story. There are miliary spheres, the cross of the Order of Christ, the battlements carved with cannonball decorations, and the elegant loggia on the river-facing side with its Venetian-influenced arch windows, a reminder that 16th century Lisbon was at the crossroads of the world. The Islamic and Oriental influences woven into the Manueline ornament are visible everywhere you look, a testament to the global connections Portugal had forged through its voyages. Inside, the rooms are largely empty. The tower was never a residence in any comfortable sense. There is an admission fee, and Lisboa card holders enter for free. Take tram 15 to Belém and walk 10 minutes to the tower. And if your timing allows, try to be there for sunset. The light over the Tagus at the end of the day, the bridge in the distance, the tower glowing against the sky, it is by any measure one of the most beautiful sights Lisbon has to offer, and the perfect note on which to end this list. And that finally is our list of the 50 best things to see and do in Lisbon. 50 entries that barely scratch the surface of everything this city has to offer, and yet, putting this together, we have found ourselves falling for Lisbon all over again, which is perhaps the best thing you can say about any place. We hope this gives you a genuine sense of what awaits you in Lisbon. Whether you end up spending a long weekend or a full week, whether you go chasing fado in the Alfama or sunsets from the Torre de Belém, whether you get happily lost in the Moraria or spend an entire afternoon in the Estufa Fria, Lisbon has a way of getting under your skin and staying there. We know it has with us. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this one. It has been a long journey, and we are genuinely glad you made it with us. If you find it useful, you know what to do, and if you have already been to Lisbon and there is something you think deserves a place on this list, we would love to hear about it in the comments. You will see now on the screen the list of videos we have dedicated to Lisbon on the channel. Plenty of material to prepare the perfect trip to the capital of Portugal. We are waiting for you on those videos.